Welcome back for another tutorial on Wildix collaboration. This time we'll be going through the Features tab within Wildix, and you can get here by clicking Settings and then Features. A good prerequisite is to be familiar with changing your user status, which we have in another video that I will link down in the description. So this is usually the section that confuses most users, but really it's quite simple. Here's where you'd come to configure like a personal call forward, to change settings, change your ringtone, change how your calls behave when you set different user statuses. So I'll run through each one of these different settings and I'll explain a little bit in terms of how things work for internal, external, blacklist, and whitelist. So the most important thing to remember is that within each kind of sub-menu you've got of internal, external, blacklist, is that it only affects those kinds of calls. So an internal call would be an extension to extension dialing. So another user on the system, perhaps a colleague, calling you would be an internal call. An external call would be someone dialing you from outside of your company. So they might be dialing your main telephone number or something, and if your phone rings, these are the settings that will affect that kind of call. So I'll run through the different line items on the internal settings, and then we can go through and set up a couple configurations and you'll see how this works. So the activate class just means that it's active for that specific user status. So you'll see internal, the default one is checked on and it's grayed out, so you can't even uncheck it. This is just for when you're available and for internal calls. So call reject would mean that the call is hung up immediately. It doesn't go to voicemail or anything, it just hangs up. Call forward busy would be, this is what will happen if you don't answer the phone because you're already on the phone with someone else. Call forward no answer will be if you don't answer the phone because you're, say, away from your desk, but you're not already in a call or anything like that. Call forward all will be that it sends every call that comes to you directly to voicemail or another option. So you can choose various options in any one of these drop downs. There's quite a few things you can do. So you can type in, say, a custom code if your administrator has one set, and then it will dial that number. And that can do any sort of custom variation for you. You can type in a user, and then all calls would just be sent to that user in this example, or you can just leave it as voicemail, and then every call is going to go to voicemail. Call waiting is where the system will push calls through to you, whether you're on the phone or not already. Call timeout will be a custom timeout that you've set just for your extension so that your phone will stop ringing after a certain amount of seconds. This can be good if you have a direct telephone number or something along those lines where you want to have a custom option to change how long your phone rings to your personal preferences. Enable mobility with timeout. This means if you have your mobile number added in your personal settings, then after this timeout, say of 10 seconds, the system will try to call you on your cell phone number. Mobility confirmation passes over the caller ID. So if you have enable mobility with timeout and you want to see the original caller's name, you don't just want to see it's a forwarded call from the Wildix phone system, then leave this checked on and you'll see the original caller's caller ID come through to your cell phone number. Notify missed calls via email does exactly what it says on the tin there, so you will just get an email whenever you've had a missed call. And the same thing here with SMS. It will send you an SMS text message if you miss a call, and it will be to the cell number that you have in your personal settings here. Custom ring. So with custom ring, you can choose the ringtone that's used for your internal calls, and you can do it for an array of different options. So there's a whole list of different ringtones you can pick from. So I like the external one for all my internal calls, although that goes against it a little bit. This is the sound that I like to use for any internal calls coming through. When I have my do not disturb turned on, as you could see here, if I have, say, set it to vacation or do not disturb, you can see now it goes red for my user status, and all the calls now for internal are going to follow this pathway. So then you can see the really only difference I have here is call forward all is going to voicemail, so my phone won't even ring, it goes straight to voicemail, but I also have this on silent too. So if this was unchecked, then calls would just ring silently, and they wouldn't make a noise or any sort of notification. It would only just pop up on the side of my screen as it normally would with the call, but it wouldn't be making any sort of ringtone. So once you've finished making your various settings for each kind of user status, just hit save. You can have a custom one for your away as well. So once you see this is checked on, everything becomes active, and now I can have a unique setting just for when I'm away. So maybe I've got with client, so I could have a custom setting on away when I'm with a client. And so if I uncheck this again, it's not going to follow a custom setup for away, and it will just follow my default, which is going to be my available setting. So now if I go to my external calls, it's the same process. Now just the callers calling from outside of the company can have their own setting. So the only difference really between the two here is that I've had the enable mobility with timeout, which I'm going to turn off in internal, but the external really just has a different ringtone. That's the main thing I'm looking for when I want my calls coming in, is to be able to just distinguish between an external call and an internal call. So I've got ring 1 for external when I'm available, an external ringtone on my internal calls. So the only other difference you could have is that you can have something else happen for do not disturb. So currently, if we're based on these settings that I have here, when I'm in do not disturb, if somebody rings me from an external telephone number, it's still going to ring my device. It's still going to call me. Whereas my internal calls won't call, they'll go straight to voicemail and it'll be silent. This is a good use case if you have, if you're in a kind of company that you always need to make sure you're answering the phone for external calls, but maybe you're just quite busy with tasks and various other things that you're not wanting to be bothered right now by internal calls. And there are plenty of other use cases you could apply to these. So there's lots of options you can change that fit your unique circumstance. Blacklist is a type of call. So if I have a blacklisted telephone number, I can make custom settings. And this goes the exact same for whitelist. You can actually change any of these to do whatever you would like. And how this works is that if I go into my phone book and I select public phone books, they have a temporary DID here. And you can see here I've got contact, type of contact, blacklist. So under type of contact, I can choose internal, external, blacklist, or whitelist. So once I choose one of these, as this user, say, calls in, the phone system automatically sees, and that's to save, the phone system will automatically see that contact is put under blacklist, and it's going to follow one of these procedures should I have this checked. So if I have this turned on, then I can have a custom setting just for that particular client, say, and any other client that I list as blacklist. So I could have call forward all, I could have just that client always go to voicemail, I could have just that client maybe dial out to a different telephone number, so I could, dial the do-tell main telephone number, something like this. So then it's going to dial this number and dial out. So there's lots of things you can do with these various fields here that give you plenty of customization and flexibility. So one thing that's very nice with this system as a whole for user experience is that you get more customization options than I've ever seen in any other phone system. It's very advanced in that regard. So you can change anything you like here. It is just important to remember that you could break the phone system almost. So if you start making changes that negatively affect your experience with calls, just remember you can always go back to a default. You can always ask questions with your solutions integrator. You can ask us any questions you'd like, and we'll be happy to help you get these configured to make sure it suits you best. The final piece you want to consider is just your availability when you're in a call group. So by default in the system, when a user is first created, it could have a separate setting that just if you're unavailable, it automatically sets you as unavailable, sort of regardless of what these features are, say for an external call. In order to change that, just go to Contact Center down here, third from the bottom, and just uncheck the unavailable on away/DND. If this is turned on, you won't be able to receive calls regardless of what your features are set when a call comes in via a call group. So a group of phones ringing all at one time. Just leave that unchecked if you want to have sort of personalized kind of custom features and call flows depending on what you've set up in your features. Okay, and that is features within Wildix collaboration. Please let us know if you have any questions at all.